Dr. Alma Gonzalez is the Principal Consultant at STRATHA Learning Corporation. She holds a Ph.D. in Strategic Studies from the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore and is an expert in talent development. Alma has been fully immersed in the adult learning and development ecosystem for over 10 years, working with individuals, corporations, governments, and higher education institutions around the world. The purpose of Alma's work is to help humanity achieve the next level of evolution through the power of strategic learning. Thank you so much, attendees, for attending our conference. As a reminder to all of our attendees, this conference is being recorded. We will have question and answer at the end of the presentation. Please use the question and answer tool if you have a question for the speaker. The stage is all yours, Alma. You can now unmute yourself and share your content. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana, for your very kind introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. The subject of my presentation is how to be better than a robot. And I know that many of you must be thinking, wait a second, am I not better than robots or better than any technology for that matter just because I'm a human being? And the answer is that it depends. It depends on better at what. Because the fact is that when it comes to work, robots, artificial intelligence enhanced robots in particular, are proving to be faster, better, and more efficient at doing certain tasks than human beings. And today I will be talking about how we can make the most out of the situation by enhancing our uniquely human skills. So my talk has two objectives. And the first one is to explain in very, very basic terms the implications of robots, AI, and automation at the workplace. And this is very important because there are serious misconceptions about what robots and AI can actually do. And these misconceptions can generate fear about the future of jobs as we know them. So we first need to understand what's really going on with robots, AI, and automation. And then my second objective is to provide you with a framework so that you can devise strategies to thrive in this context of automated workplaces and be better than robots at work. Okay, so let's get started. Why is it so important to talk about this topic now? Well, the simple answer is because it's happening and we need to objectively examine the phenomenon to be able to act in a smart way and produce the results that we want in our careers and in our lives. If you do a quick search on Google on the impact of robots and AI on work, you will find a myriad of reports that show very different statistics, some very optimistic, some not so. And this generates confusion. Well, confusion at best and anxiety at worst. And this is because the popular business press often produces narratives suggesting that robots may be making humans obsolete at the workplace, with headlines like this. Just take a look at this. US lost over 60 million jobs. Now robots take AI will take millions more. This is Forbes. Or this one, robots will destroy our jobs and we're not ready for it. This is The Guardian. Or yet this one, robots to replace up to 20 million factory jobs by 2030. This is the BBC. And faced with all this information, we have to be very critical and ask ourselves, is this really the case? And the truth is that, well, this information is often based on research studies that produce different and even contradicting results. And the hype started back in 2013 when researchers at Oxford University published this very influential paper on the future of employment, in which they argued that up to 47% of American jobs were at risk of automation. Then many other studies and estimations followed suit. For example, this one by the OECD that estimates that only 14% of jobs are at risk of automation worldwide. But PwC thinks that too low, and that in fact, 1/3 of all jobs could be at risk of automation in the next decade. And the World Economic Forum estimates that by 2025, across 26 countries, 85 million jobs will be lost because of automation, but they argue that's not so bad because 97 million new jobs will be created. The overall message that we can see in all these research reports is that jobs are being automated due to technological progress. And some jobs are being eliminated while others are being created. Different researchers use different methodologies and therefore they have different figures. But they are all incorrect in that jobs cannot really be automated. Jobs are not automated. Tasks are automated, not jobs. But of course, some jobs have tasks that are more automatable than others, as you can see on this list. But still, jobs as such are not destroyed. They are transformed into something else. They are technologically enhanced, so to say. So organizations and individuals, workers, we have to devise ways to ensure that humans and technology can coexist, co-create, and collaborate to be more productive and add more value with our labor. And of course, that implies the upgrading of our skills, and in particular, our human skills. But before elaborating on that, let's take a quick look at what robots and AI can actually do. Let's demystify robots. A robot essentially is a set of interconnected tools that first perceive the environment using sensors and then reason about events using algorithms to perform certain actions for which they have been programmed. It is precisely this sequence of processes that you see on the screen of sensing, perception, cognition, and action what makes robots different from other machines. And the key features of robots are that they interact with the world, they react to inputs, and they manipulate objects, making changes to the world through their actions. Now, I have to tell you that this isn't new. Robots have existed since the 1950s and have been widely used in industry for decades, extending human capabilities by doing routine, monotonous, tedious, repetitive, heavy, boring, and even dangerous tasks. But now, robots are enhanced by advanced artificial intelligence. And the question is, can they outperform and even outsmart us, human beings? And to answer this question, let's briefly look at how AI, artificial intelligence, works. Basically, AI is also a set of tools that can perform not just manual physical tasks like traditional robots, but also complex mental tasks, which we thought required human intelligence. And now we realize that's not necessarily the case. So AI can make decisions, solve complex problems, and even learn the way we humans do. As you can see here, just like robots, AI starts by perceiving the environment, but in this case, the environment can be enormous amounts of data. It then detects patterns in the data to understand, learn, and make decisions faster and even more efficiently and intelligently than human beings. And there are 3 levels in which AI can support humans at work. The first and most obvious one is replace. AI can't just replace the worker to perform certain tasks at which AI is better than humans. In education, for example, educators can just delegate boring admin tasks and the production of performance reports to artificial intelligence. Then the second level is assist. AI can assist workers. That is, AI works together with workers, with human workers, to make them more productive. Continuing with our education example, AI can help the educator track students' progress and identify areas where they need support. So both human and artificial intelligence work together to find a solution. And finally, the third level is augment. AI augments the capabilities of workers by allowing them to perform new tasks which give them an added value that they would not have without artificial intelligence. So augmentation happens when AI and human intelligence merge. They merge to create greater, better solutions that cannot happen by human intelligence alone. In education, when it comes to teaching, AI can deliver personalized content through digital technologies to learners, while the human educator can focus on the development of social and emotional skills in the classroom. So that's how an educator can be augmented by artificial intelligence. And finally, when we look at automation, we're talking about the application of robots and AI to produce solutions collaborating with human workers, or even with very minimal human intervention. The rationale here is that humans complete tasks that are hard to automate, and therefore productivity increases, and humans are liberated or freed from easier tasks to do more interesting and rewarding work that requires more advanced human skills that AI does not have, at least not yet. Now, it might seem impressive that we can now outsource tasks that used to require human intelligence to machines. But this is not new. Our human capacity to create useful tools and innovative technologies is at the very core of who we are as human beings. It is what has differentiated us from other life forms on Earth. In fact, human evolution has been driven by a never-ending process of creation of more and more advanced tools and technologies. And we do this to make our work and lives easier, better, and more enjoyable. And this has transformed work and jobs throughout history. This is not new. The difference now is that machine work is not limited to simple manual physical tasks now. Strong AI can now perform advanced intellectual tasks and do what we consider to be the exclusive domain of human intelligence. That is, think, learn, and solve complex problems. And in this context, the obvious question is, what can we do about it? And well, to answer this question, we first have to know what we want to achieve in this context. And if you are like me and my clients, and you want to not only survive, but thrive in increasingly automated workplaces, we have to do two things. One, we need to be able to perform tasks that are not easy to automate, that are not automatable, at least not yet, and not in the foreseeable future either. And two, to get to that stage, we need to be strategic learners. And now the question is, how do we become strategic learners? And to answer that question, I've put together a very simple 4-step model to guide you in the process. So we have here a strategic learner is the objective, to become a strategic learner, right? And here are the 4 steps. The first one is to understand. You understand the technological context in general in terms of AI and technological evolution, and more specifically, you understand the implications that these technological transformations have in your industry. Equally important, you understand how AI can enhance your very own profession, how your job can work complementarily with AI. That means that you identify the tasks that you're currently doing that can be automated and are likely to be automated in the future, and you start focusing less on those tasks and more on or shifting your attention to tasks that AI cannot do, so that your work can be more effective, more efficient, and even more pleasant, some will say. And this is very important. It all starts with understanding the context in which we are operating and taking charge of our professions. We have to be AI literate to understand what's going on and how we can manage AI to benefit from it, and our careers can also benefit from it. Then step 2, develop. You develop your right brain. We have 2 brain hemispheres. The left one is associated with skills based on logic and reasoning, and these are skills that AI is also developing. But your right brain is associated with what we call uniquely human skills that machines will have a very difficult time duplicating. In fact, neuroscientists call these skills meta-learning constructs. And these meta-learning constructs are mainly social and emotional skills that support learning and the productive application of this learning. Now, these skills are thought to be very hard to automate because complex social and emotional interactions are not the area of expertise of AI. And once you start working on the development of these right brain skills, you move on to the 3rd step. And the 3rd step is augment. What do you augment? Well, you augment yourself. And you do it by leveraging on AI to perform new tasks, new activities at your work that are more value to whatever you do. In other words, you use AI to complement your work. So you need to envision what an augmented version of yourself looks like. And augmenting yourself essentially means reinventing your work through the incorporation of AI as part of it. And finally, we have step 4, transform. What do you transform? Work itself. And this is highly desirable because the reality is that the vast majority of workers around the world are not happy at work at all. They are not happy with their jobs. That's the fact. A recent global Gallup survey found that 85% of the world's 1 billion full-time workers are very unhappy at work. And of course, there are many reasons for this. Workers are disengaged, they are burnt out, they are bored, they are frustrated, they are resentful towards the boss, and whatnot. The question here is, how can we transform this situation with the help of AI? We can use AI to make us better, more productive workers, and create better, happier working environments by transforming the nature of work itself. And eventually, we transform the meaning of work. Work stops being a mere means to survive in this world and becomes a tool for human enhancement, development, and evolution. And isn't that what we want? To be more and enjoy more what we do? Well, let me tell you that AI integration into the workplace can help us get there. But first, before we get there, we need to develop strong human skills that are robot-proof. And according to neuroscientist Dr. Vivian Ming, these are the robot-proof skills. You have general cognitive skills, social skills, self-regulation skills, emotional skills, and creativity skills. Some of the previous presenters already mentioned that some of these skills are also highly demanded worldwide. And except for general cognitive skills that are developed in childhood, all the other meta-learning robot-proof skills can be developed at any point in our lifetimes. Hence the importance of lifelong learning. Unfortunately, education institutions are still very focused on the transfer of knowledge and not on the development of these human skills. And that brings me to my next point. The need to innovate education to effectively develop in learners uniquely human skills. And again, the big question is how to do it. How do you teach human skills? I've put together another model to explain that. First, our purpose is meta-learning, and our objective is human augmentation, the augmentation of human workers. And we want learners to develop the skills that will enable them to be augmented workers, that is, workers that can add superior value by collaborating with AI. Second, we need to select what the relevant skills are so that we can design educational programs aimed at developing them. Third, we have to devise and implement creative pedagogies for learners to acquire these skills and develop programs accordingly, develop educational programs that implement these pedagogies to develop these relevant skills in learners. I know this may seem hard to believe, but I have seen programs in both higher education institutions and corporate settings that attempt to develop human skills in learners by lecturing them on these skills. Sage on the stage kind of knowledge transfer. It's just absurd, but it happens. It happens very often. And we need to go beyond that and create effective learning experiences for our learners if we want to really augment them. And fourth, these learning experiences are ideally delivered in personalized pathways. That means that we adjust learning based on the particular needs of individual students, individual learners, allowing them to advance at their own pace to the extent that this is efficient, of course. And finally, we close the cycle with the evaluation or the assessment, as one of the previous speakers mentioned. The assessment is very important. The evaluation of the extent to which the educational intervention contributed to human augmentation. Now, this simple model is framed by three very, very important elements. First, learning technologies. We should leverage on whatever technologies are at our disposal to enhance the learning experience of our learners or our workers. But learning technologies are not enough. Research has shown that when people self-regulate their learning, when they learn on their own using these technologies, the outcomes are not as good as when this learning is complemented by social learning, by learning with others. This is why just taking online e-learning courses like the ones offered by LinkedIn and others are not very effective, and they have very high dropout rates. It's because they lack the sense of community and belonging that social learning generates. So it is important that we incorporate the social element into the process. We integrate the technologies, but we also create spaces, online or physical spaces, for social interaction and collaborative learning to take place. And this is based on recent neuroscience findings that suggest that the brain is a social organ, and we learn better when we connect with other brains and when we learn in communities. So we need to implement recent neuroscience discoveries as part of our training and education practices. Think about it. Just think about it. How can you develop social and emotional skills without engaging with others? It's not likely to happen. You can acquire knowledge about a skill. You can have a conceptual understanding of it, but you cannot really develop and deploy a skill. To really develop human skills, you have to practice, you have to experience those skills in social contexts. And ideally, this social context is the workplace, so that the learning experience can seamlessly integrate with the workflow in what constitutes workflow learning. And with this, I will end my presentation. I hope that you found it useful or at least interesting. And if I could interact with you, I would ask you what your key takeaways are, but I can't, so I'll just tell you what three main takeaways could be. One, AI-enhanced robots performing human tasks is just part of technological evolution. We shouldn't be afraid of it. We should be proactive to examine how automation could change our profession and lead to better, more satisfying, and more creative, and even more enjoyable work for all of us. So the first key takeaway is don't be afraid, be proactive. 2, uniquely human skills imply the deliberate development of our human right brain. So we need to focus our energy on developing the kind of skills that are not easy to automate to continue adding value, but human value in automated workplaces. And third, the challenge for education institutions and training providers in general, the education ecosystem in the large sense, is to evolve to teach meta-learning skills. We need to do this. I have shown you a framework that can help, but of course you can modify it to better meet your particular needs.